I'll take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole.
Back again with another edition of the Fishing Hole here in the State Line. I'm Hurricane Jerry along with Adam Walton. You can also stream Iron Country at ironcountry.fm or from your desktop or even tablet or even from your TuneIn radio app. And today's show is brought to you by the Rock River Bait Box in Fort Atkinson. They have live bait and tackle plus your better selection than your big box stores. The Rock River Bait Box is your home for St. Croix rods and all Acme tackle products. And now your new home for RS Nets. They also carry old Hickory utility buildings ranging in sizes from 8x8 up to 16x40 with free delivery. Get the goods at the Rock River Bait Box near the Rock River on Fort Atkinson on Rock River Road. And Adam, how's it going?
Good, Jerry. How's it going with you?
I'm doing pretty good. I've actually I've been following our next guest here the last year or so, and he's an up and coming angler. I mean, He's making some noise. I mean, we've had Tommy Kimos on the show. We've had Keith Gavias. We've had a few of the other big-name walleye tournaments that fished the NWT. And we have...
Max Wilson.
Yes.
Max Wilson just won the NWT out in Lake of the Woods. And we got him on the show this morning to talk a little bit about just his background and how he prepared for the Lake of the Woods. I mean, it's a huge body of water, so... You know, how do you prepare for something like that?
Where do you start?
Yeah, and then to walk away with a nice number, first place trophy. That's pretty amazing. So
not to mention, Max, you got yourself a pretty nice check in a boat, right?
Yeah, you know, that walked away with a pretty nice payday. You know, and then the week after that, we won Team of the Year for a separate circuit. So it was a pretty lucrative 2 weeks, I'd say.
Yeah, that's a good year right out of the back-to-back wins like that. So focusing now just on Lake of the Woods. Well, let's back up a minute. You want to tell anglers that our listeners that might not have heard of you just a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into fishing, and how you got to
where you're at today.
Yeah, into tournaments.
Well, yeah, I grew up over in Wales, Wisconsin, which is over by Delafield. You know, I just grew up fishing with my dad and my grandpa. You know, they were both big-time fishermen. My dad was a guide in the area back in the day, and my grandpa was, you know, my number one fishing buddy since I was little. So they had me out on the water whenever they could, and I just kind of, you know, fished nonstop. Just growing up, I, you know, spent every waking moment on the water. And when I was actually a sophomore in high school, decided I just wanted to try a tournament. So I signed up for one on Winnebago and fished out my little 16-foot Mirocraft and ended up taking second in that one. And
nice.
Just kind of got the bug from that, and then I pretty much fished darn near every tournament I could ever since then.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Now, as far as the Lake of the Woods tournament, what was your mindset going into that? How did you prep for that?
You know, I knew it was going to be a big body of water. You know, it was kind of a daunting task because up in Minnesota, you're only allowed one line per person. You know, I kind of looked at the body of water when I first got there, and it reminded me somewhat of what I do in Green Bay when those fish are out in the mud basin. They're starting to transition, moving a lot, so you really got to stay on top of them. So I really just relied on my electronics just to be able to drive around and graph, you know, at higher speeds. You know, with my Garmin's, I'm able to graph at like 35 to 40 mile an hour and see where these pods of fish are and where they move each day. So I'm not spending time wasting driving around slowly trying to mark. I can drive around until I mark and then, you know, find these fish. And this tournament was kind of different because they have a slot out there. You can only have 1/28, and then the rest have to be under 19.5. So you really had to find two different types of programs to get on these fish, get two different classes of fish each day.
Gotcha. Now, yeah, I've fished that body of water myself, and I love the slot that they have in there. That's a good point there. I mean, if you're fishing this tournament, I mean, how can you tell from your electronics, okay, say you're cruising around, you're looking for packs of fish, how can you tell they're bigger fish versus fish that are 15 to say 18, 19 inches or right below out of the slot? Is there a way you can tell with your electronics?
Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, you can just look at the size of the marks. You know, those marks will be generally it's the bigger the fish, the bigger the marks. You know, a lot of times, you know, a lot of times I just went with the pure I looked at both the size and the amount of marks. If I was going through, packs of fish, I like to play the law average. The more fish, the better chance that you're going to get, the better size fish. You don't have to, you can pick through fish. So I look for those really big, big balls of marks, groups of fish, and then I also look for bait fish to see if they're actively feeding, chasing bait. Those are generally going to be your feeders compared to those more negative fish that are sitting close on bottom, and you really got to work over them multiple times to get them to fire.
What was the water depth that you generally found most of your fish hanging at?
For my overs, I was fishing mud basin in about 33 to 34 feet. It was they weren't on structure, but they were related to the structure. They're hanging adjacent to it. And then when I was going for my unders, we were over in like 15 feet of water, a little bit shallower, rocky sand basin, getting away from that mud.
As far as your rod reel line setup, what worked the best for you? How'd you have that all set up?
We were using lead core mainly in that deeper basin. We had the new JT Ascendant trolling rod. That was a great lead core setup. I like the bigger reel that has a larger gear ratio that is able to crank in a little bit more line per rotation, especially when you're fishing 180, 200 feet of line out. You can get those fish in a little bit faster. And then we were trolling. There were some custom painted baits from Viper Custom Tackle that I was using for my overs. I had one bait that caught every over the whole entire week. I don't know why. It was just a UV green, special pattern that they had, and that was the only thing I could get the big fish to go on. And then, I went with the more smaller size shad body baits for my unders. How
many of those special custom baits that you got the big fish on do you have of that color? Just the one?
I had two of them. I had one in the number 9 and I had one in the 7. And actually in practice, I had given my teammate one of the ones to use during practice because I had realized it was a good one, so I wanted to make sure both of us had it. And it worked good for me and didn't really work for him. So it was crazy. Just that one bait caught all the big fish.
I tell you, I always get nervous having just one bait when all of a sudden you're on fish and that's the one they want, especially when you're fishing a tournament, because you get one pike strike and it's game over.
I've learned it's like a scientific fact that if you only have one, that's going to be your best bait.
Yeah, right.
It's just, unfortunately, I've proven it over the years. And you're right. Generally, a rock. Most times it's a rock for me, or a pike or a sheephead. Something will snap me off.
Hey, Max, I got to ask you, what's it like? I mean, tell our listeners. I don't want to put you in the spot. How old you are? You're what? You're about 22, 23?
Yep, I just turned 22 about 2 weeks ago.
You're okay. All right. What's it like fishing with guys like Tommy Kimos, Chase Parsons, and Keith Gavayas, some of the top, Brett King? Where does this put your mindset?
It's got to be a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's got to be intimidating, and it's got to give you a little confidence, I think.
Yeah, it is tough. It's kind of funny that you mentioned Tommy, because I'm actually fishing with Tommy right now.
Really?
See. Yeah, he's out I'm in the back of the boat, and he's running the boat right now. So it's pretty intimidating fishing against those guys. They're all really well proven. They've kicked my butt for years. They've been around for quite some time, and they've proven themselves over the years. And to come into this and only my second full season doing it, and not having quite as much knowledge as them and having a little bit more of a learning curve, it can be intimidating. But I learned really early on that these guys are just as human as any of us, and everyone's prone to tough fishing days. Just because you gotta look at it. You can't fish their resume, what they've done in the past, because everyone's prone to have a tough day of fishing.
Right.
So you just have to go out and fish your best program and not worry. Tommy he's fishing the same spot as me. He's going to catch all the fish. You just have to fish to the best of your abilities and let it fall where it may. Cause, those guys will eventually struggle. Even the best struggle on certain days.
You just got to do your thing. Well, what works best for you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's I tell you, that's great insight. For some of our younger listeners, give them a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Drive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's anything's within your grasp. Go out there and do your thing.
It's one thing I learned really early on is, no matter who you are or what you do, as long as you put the work in, anything can really happen. Because I came into that championship not expecting to do well. I mean, I even told my co-anglers, that was going to be my last NWT. I wasn't expecting to, do that well because we really didn't have that killer of a pre-fish. We only caught a couple overs, and they all came like back to back early in the pre-fish. So I was not expecting to do well, but when it's your day, it's your day, and you just have to keep your head in the game and keep grinding until that moment, finally does happen.
That's great advice. Hey, Max, we want to thank you for coming on this morning. Make sure you tell Tommy hi. Tommy's been on the show a few times. We're looking forward to having him back on too. So
I will. He's currently kicking my butt fishing right now.
We got to get you. We got to get you off the phone here, and you got to get back at it again.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Thank you, Max. We'll talk to you later.
Yep, you have a good one.
Bye.
That is pro tournament angler Max Wilson, champion of the NWT at Lake of the Woods a few weeks back, and looking forward to next year's tournament too. I watch the NWT like I watch the PGA or
drunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I actually watch. It's kind of cool. I'll follow on social media and see who's on ahead, and it's kind of cool to get to know some of these guys in this tournament. We've had him on this show. We've had, it's kind of cool, and you kind of pull for them, every one of them.
Well, it's neat, and the listeners that have been with us, we're coming up on our anniversary.
Yeah, 2 years. We've been doing the show 2 years. Yeah.
It's kind of neat doing this show, and
right.
I'm sure you agree. And I'm sure the listeners have been with us the whole time. Just looking at all these different people's perspective, even though we might be fishing they all might be fishing the same bodies of water, just to hear the different viewpoints on how to fish it, and
everyone's got their own viewpoints or their own opinions, and it's
pretty cool.
Being a co-host of the show, I've learned so much in the last 2 years, and even my catch, I think, is going up the past couple of years. So
well, that's the nice thing about anglers. I mean, you kind of put all. I learned this before I was guiding. Talking to people that fished a lot, relatives, and you learn a lot from all these other people, and you take maybe a little bit of information from this person and this person, and then pretty soon and then you got your own information that you learn,
right?
And pretty soon you put your own puzzle.
You put your own perspective, kind of like what Max was talking about.
Exactly.
He's got his own way of doing things, and I know I have several fights with my 19-year-old son, or not verbal fights in the boat, because he's got his way of doing things, which is good. He's independent, and I've got my own way. So I got to let him be his own person and let him do what he wants to do in the boat. But we end up clashing sometimes. But
and I've learned things, just being a guide too. We'll take people out, and part of a guide's job is to not only put people on fish, but show them some tactics that or presentations that hopefully will put the most fish in the boat for them. And you show them things, but some of these people are pretty avid anglers, and it's not their first time out with the guide. So you show them what you do, and they're like, yeah, okay, but I think I'm going to try it this way. It's like, all right, perfect. And next thing you know, they're catching more fish doing something that they did. I had a 10-year-old one day.
Boy.
He was catching more fish. I showed him how to do this jig. He caught a few, but then he just started kind of messing around, doing his own thing. It's like, okay, as long as he's having fun. Pretty soon he started catching a lot of fish. I was like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah, right.
It doesn't matter. You can always learn something from people.
It don't matter who you are or how old you are.
Right. That's pretty
Keep an open mind, Well, that's going to wrap up our show this week. Again, we want to thank Max Wilson for coming on this morning here. And I know it's getting closer to ice fishing season, which is coming up. So, I know Adam and I are working on some bigger names in the fishing industry. We don't want to really reveal that yet because some of these are really big names. And I know it's tough with their scheduling, but hopefully stay tuned because we're going to have some big surprises coming up here before the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. If all plans fall into place, obviously some of these guys, the bigger names in the fishing industry, are quite busy with their scheduling. And things change. But we're trying our best to get some guys locked in. And
not only are we getting some of the local guys, but also some of the regional guys throughout the Midwest, but nationally, we're going to go for some big names. We don't want to reveal names yet, but we want our listeners that listen to the Fishing Hole